We're kicking off season 10 with an update on Babs after her second stroke in 5 years. This episode of My Big Fat Fabulous Life was a very sad episode. Be prepared for lots of very sad moments. This video should be sponsored by Kleenex as it brought so many tears to my eyes. The episode does not shed the positive light and recovery of Babs that I was hoping for. Unfortunately, that is sometimes how life is. We do not get what we want, so let's get into the details. Welcome back to Tea with Trishy. Please be sure to share this video with others who would enjoy this recap of Season 10, Episode 1, and join the Tea with Trishy circle of friends by hitting that subscribe button. Of course, the show starts out with a very lengthy recap of Season 9, Episode 12, and I'll link that recap video in the cards and also in the description if you need a refresher. The episode starts with Glenn, Whitney, and Hunter sitting on the confessional couch. They were giving updates on Babs and how she was not doing well. Babs had her second stroke almost 5 years to the date of her first stroke. This time around, Babs was definitely more severe than after her first stroke. Hunter shares how he had gone to get his mom some food as she had asked him. When he returned home, he found her on the couch and she appeared to not be alive. He called 911. Glenn shares that they have been married for almost 45 years and he has no idea how he would go on without her. These types of things really make you look at your own mortality. These life events remind us that life is short. Tomorrow is promised to no one. So hug your loved ones, besties, and a big hug to you all. Whitney shared how she got the phone call from her father at around 6 p.m. and that is when she learned that her mom had had a stroke and was in the ER. Babs could not talk or move after this stroke, and Whitney asked her father to put the phone next to Babs' ear so she could tell her how much that she loved her. The only response Babs gave was, "Okay," very slow and drawn out. Whitney goes on to share that this stroke is much worse than the one 5 years ago, and they have no idea what the prognosis is for sweet Babs. Then they found out she had COVID, and because Babs lived with Glenn and Hunter, they were tested, and of course, they also tested positive. So they had to isolate. Whitney was the only one who did not test positive, so she was the only one allowed to go see her mom in the hospital and advocate for her mom's care. Heather comes by to Whitney's home with some lasagna dinner she had made for Glenn and Hunter. Heather is so very supportive and positive. When Whitney would allow her thoughts to go to her mother's passing, Heather was strong and supportive for Whitney. And Whitney has valid concerns about her mom as she is 75, diabetic, has high blood pressure, and having a very bad stroke along with COVID is very concerning, and understandably so that Whitney would be so scared. So many things Bab will need to fight through, and Whitney, of course, is very worried and upset about her mother's condition. Whitney learns that her mother was not eating and she could come to visit her mom in the hospital in hopes of getting her to eat. Whitney and Heather take the dinner to Glenn and Hunter, and Whitney and Heather were standing outside while Glenn and Hunter were behind the clear door talking to each other, and Whitney was telling them she was going to see her mom in the hospital. Glenn was so nervous for her to go. The worry was seen all over Glenn's face. He explained his concern about Whitney being high risk for C19 due to her weight, and said he was worried he was going to lose his wife Babs and his daughter Whitney, and he could not stand that thought. This was so heartbreaking to see this pain all over Glenn's face. At that moment, I'm proud of Whitney because she was strong and said that the hospital has PPE and she was not going to leave her mother all alone in the hospital, and she needed to be there for her mother. I have read some comments saying that Whitney is doing this for ratings. She was very vulnerable about what is happening, and she even said she does not know how much of her mom she is going to share. She said it's one thing to make the decision to put her highs and lows out to the public, but is completely different to make that decision for her mom, who at this point is not capable of making that decision for herself. Whitney is very aware of protecting her mom, and she does not seem to give a darn if people are wanting to see her mom in this vulnerable state. She is protecting her mom, and I am so proud of Whitney for that. She does know that Babs is a favorite of mine and the fans, so she also is conflicted because she wants the fans to send encouraging messages and keep sending Babs all the positive inspiration, love, and prayers. So let's go ahead and flood this comment with some love and support for Babs. Yes, Whitney has to put on makeup and get her hair done for the confessional sessions, and she even expresses how it is so trivial and seems she doesn't want to do that part, as the only thing she says she wants to do is to be with her mom. Seems like when my father passed, I was conflicted between doing my job because I needed to get paid and being with my family. Looking back, maybe going to work helped to get my mind off of things during the work day, because I could see myself just wanting to curl up in bed and cry for days. Whitney explains how difficult it is to see her mom in the hospital, and after 4 days in the hospital, Babs started to hallucinate and was paranoid. Nurses called it ICU delirium. The hardest part, Whitney said, was after the visit when she had to leave. Then Babs' blood pressure starts to go up, and she gets a UTI, and we know she wasn't eating, and they had to put in a feeding tube. The hospital was trying to get her into rehab, but the rehab requirements were not met, so they suggested a nursing home, and the doctors suggested palliative care. Seems the doctors were pushing her really fast. This was happening after only about 8 or 9 days. Seems the doctors did not think she would be recovering or getting any better, and they were rushing her right on out. Because Glenn and Hunter were positive for C19, it was up to Whitney to continue to advocate for her mother. When she received the news her mother was going to be put on palliative care, she called her father and was extremely upset. Glenn was calm and gave Whitney a verbal shaking, telling her, "Just tell me what happened." When Whitney explained the situation, Glenn immediately said they would call the palliative nurse, as she had been helpful all along. Glenn stayed calm, strong, and was handling things even while he was sick. The palliative nurses are a great resource and give great guidance during these difficult times. So I am thankful Babs has the nurse advocate to help the family in these big decisions. Whitney shares with Todd her concern that the Frenchman may never get to meet her mother. Todd looks puzzled and questions her because he thought the Frenchman was out of the picture. Whitney shares she did visit the Frenchman over the summer of 2021 and that things went really well, and she actually stayed a few weeks longer than she had originally planned. Since she is back in the States, she talks to the Frenchman a few times a week for a couple hours at a time. I don't know about you, but a few days a week doesn't seem like a whole heck of a lot of time to be talking. But that's me. Todd asks if she misses the physical, and she says of course she misses the baguettes. She's going to just enjoy what she has for now, as she knows often her relationships do not end well. Lenny is also introduced back onto the scene. Now remember, Lenny and Whitney dated about 1.5 years back in 2015. He's an artist, so he was helping her paint the wall for the backdrop of her No BS active videos for their new app. He was also the easy replacement for the person to do all the videos and editing. Whitney confirms that there is no relationship between her and Lenny, and her boyfriend is the Frenchman. Lenny does not seem like he's over their relationship, even though it's been 6 years. Whitney insists it's strictly business. That's it between her and Lenny. What do you think? Do you think she's not going to fall for Lenny again? She did mention that he is physically more attractive now that he has cleaned up a bit. I am thinking the second the Frenchman is out of the picture, she is totally going for Lenny. What do you think? Whitney does not seem like the type of person who likes to not be involved in a relationship. How long do you think it will be before Whitney is back with Lenny? We also see Ashley come for a visit to share that she's almost 5 months pregnant. At first, I was wondering what the heck took Ashley so long to share this information with her really good friend Whitney. Made me wonder maybe they're not that good of friends. But actually, I started to think, and it's probably due to all the restrictions of C19 and Ashley's desire to tell Whitney in person. So during this episode, Whitney's friends continually shared how BABS was like a mother to them all, and they have known her for so long. She was always the mother to Whitney and all of her friends, so kind, loving, and sweet. BABS has a long road ahead of her. Continued prayers and positive thoughts sent for BABS. Let's keep sipping some tea, besties, in one of these videos. I'll see you there.